Welcome back, everybody. It's a great day here on YouTube. Do you like my setup? My new setup, how it doesn't even cover the whole background? Very well thought out, very professional. I could cut it right here, but then if I ever move my arm over here, it'll disappear. So, yeah. Today we're talking about the top 10 most introverted states in the US. Now last week I talked about what personality type is the USA, and I broke it down into regions, and that led me to find a study that I thought was really interesting, like an actual legit scientific study that polled tens of thousands of people, testing them according to the Big Five personality scale and ranked them all. So we can see the hard data to see what is the most extroverted state, what is the most introverted state, and because I cater to the introverts here on this channel, because who else is going to be spending all their time on YouTube, we're going to look at the top 5 introverted states in the US. Did I say 10 when I started? I meant 5. I forget what I said. So let's get to the list. Now, the number 5 most introverted state in the US is one that I have been to, one that I have some familiarity with, Vermont. A couple years ago, they were offering you $10,000 to move there. Always suspicious. When there's some monetary thing, they're like, hey, move here. It's so great. We'll give you some money. Shouldn't it, I feel like something feels off here. But if you've ever been to Vermont, you know that the people there are a little odd. I wrote here on my sheet, people are weird. And aren't we all in one way or another? But in Vermont, it is marked. You're like, what is happening? Vermont is the only place where I have seen someone leave their car running as they parallel parked on the street, and then they went into the laundromat to do their laundry and just left the car running. I also passed one time a vegetable stand on the side of the road in Vermont, and there was no one running it. There was just a box there that said, put the money in for the vegetables that you take. It was all honor system. What kind of world is this? No one locks their doors up there. It's weird. It doesn't feel like anywhere that I'm used to. So there you go. Why is that? If they're so introverted, maybe it's like we want to have as little interaction as possible. So I'm not even gonna man my vegetable stand. I'm just gonna put a box there. You guys know what to do. I don't want to take the extra time. We don't lock our doors because we know everyone else is an introvert. They're not going to break in. Come on, we don't want to talk to each other. They also have a lot of maple syrup up there, so maybe they're just constantly in a sugar coma. Maybe that attributes to the introversion in Vermont. Great place, wonderful place. I love it. Number 4 most introverted state, Washington State, or Washington, depending on what part of the country you're in. Washington State, a lot of tech companies there, some big ones, Microsoft and Amazon, headquartered in Washington. Of course, there's Starbucks, the coffee company, and you know the stereotype of the Pacific Northwest, the stereotype which I harped on in my last video. Actually, I think I totally glossed over this part. It's always rainy and kind of gloomy up there. The perfect place for an introvert, am I right? And the coffee shops, the Starbucks, it makes sense. Introverts like to go to coffee houses. I don't know, what is it where you go to a coffee house where you're getting caffeine, you're getting wired, but it's always the most chill atmosphere and people are just all mellowed out? It's because that's where the introverts go. Because they need an upper, and even when they're up, it's not that up. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they're in Washington. Washington also has no income tax. Good idea. The introverts don't want to be taxed. They don't really want to have to deal with an accountant every year. I mean, they still have to for federal taxes, but let's spend half as much time with the tax preparer, not do the state side of it. And of course, On the middle side, I think, the middle side of Washington, they have a lot of apples and wine. Apples, not very introverted, but wine. You know, sometimes when an introvert just needs to unwind, they go for the wine. Number 3 on the list, Alaska, the third most introverted state. This one seems a bit obvious to me. It's like, we're really out of the way. It's really difficult to get here. It's cold and dark. Everyone kind of stays inside. Yeah, that's screaming introvert to me. For instance, Juneau, the capital of Alaska. Do you know the capital of Alaska? It's Juneau. Did you catch that joke there? That little play on words? Juneau is only accessible by boat or plane. Did you know that? You can't just drive. A man doesn't simply drive into Juneau. And apparently the roads there, my sister-in-law has told me this, she was there last year, the roads there just end. You just come to a sign that says, end of road. You're in Juneau, end of road. Like when you're in Skyrim and you try to go to the edge of the map and it's like, you cannot go there. You cannot go any farther because the developers didn't develop beyond that. Maybe that's what it is in Juneau. The developers of the world just got lazy at that point, didn't create the rest of it. Just kind of filled in some of the textures that you can see from the end of the road, not much else. They don't want you to see beyond that. Alaska also does not have income tax. Are we seeing a trend here? And actually you get paid to live there. If you didn't know this, every resident of Alaska gets paid like a dividend from the oil company, I think, for living in Alaska. Another bad sign. It's like we have to pay you guys to live here. But, you know, an introvert is trying to make a buck without having to do too much. And really, to get that money, all you have to do is exist. All you have to do is live in Alaska. So Alaska sounds like an introvert's dream. You can kind of just stay inside and avoid the rest of civilization, because if you live in Juneau, they can't get there unless they fly or sail there. Number 2, the number 2 most introverted state, New Hampshire, right next to Vermont. And if you look at a map, Vermont and New Hampshire just look like they're the flipped over versions of each other. But don't get confused. They're not that similar. New Hampshire, instead of like the farmer hippies of Vermont, New Hampshire is more like kind of like crazy libertarians. I mean, their motto is live free or die. It's a little dramatic, a little over the top. That doesn't sound quite as easygoing as the Vermonters, who are just kind of like, yeah, whatever, man, give me some more maple syrup. Give me my maple creamy. They have those in Vermont, a maple creamy. I think it's literally just vanilla ice cream with maple syrup poured on it. But they call it a maple creamy. It's what you do when you're there. Get a maple creamy. And New Hampshire has almost no income tax. They still have a little bit, but almost no income tax. I'm seeing a trend here. I can't help it. And then the number 1 most introverted state in the United States. Wait for it. I said wait for it, okay? Is Maryland. Oh my gosh. Another state that I am familiar with. One of 2 on this list that I have been to. Oh Maryland, my Maryland, how lovely are thy branches. That's actually the state song. They just took "Oh Christmas Tree" and replaced it with "Oh Maryland." Didn't change any of the other words. Now, Maryland is known for crabs, basically, and The Wire. And it's difficult to say what else is going on in Maryland. The thing about Baltimore is that's where The Wire took place. Baltimore is sort of a thing unto itself. Sort of like in Washington State, a lot of people's minds just go to Seattle. Washington State is way more than just Seattle. In the same way, Maryland is way different. The rest of Maryland is way different from Baltimore. Baltimore is a little bit scary. A lot of hipsters there who think Baltimore is better than DC, but it really isn't. So, sorry, Baltimore hipsters. Here's an interesting thing. On this list, it didn't make this video, but the 7th most introverted state is Virginia. So you have the 1st most introverted in Maryland and the 7th most in Virginia. And in between those is DC. And DC is the 3rd most extroverted state or district. It's not a state. Sorry, keep dreaming, DC. So it's a weird clash, a culture clash, if you will, between Maryland and Virginia, these two very introverted states, and then this crazy extrovert DC, Washington, DC, right in the middle of them. Maryland is very diverse. In the west, you have mountains and stuff. In the east, you have the shore and like kind of farmland areas. So it makes sense that it's kind of introverted a lot. And then in the middle, you have the suburbs of DC and Baltimore, where people just want to go to work in the city, then come home to the suburbs, not talk to anybody, just stay in their homes. Yeah, interestingly, here's another thing. The highest median household income is Maryland. And all of these, of all the states, if you're looking at median income, Maryland is number 1 in the country. And then if you look at the other states on this list, they're all in the top 10 except for Vermont. Interesting. I guess in Vermont, it's hard to make a buck selling maple creamees, I'm guessing. Anyway, those are the top 5 most introverted countries in the United States. I appreciate you watching this. Smash like if you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about these statistics. If you've been to one of these places and you think, yeah, that was pretty introverted, or maybe you had a different experience, or maybe there's somewhere else in the country that you think is even more introverted, let me know. Subscribe if you want to see videos like this and many others about personality, about comedy, not actual comedy, but just about it. Until next time, stay cool and attractive.